front of the Mentor Municipal Court. The Honorable Johnny Trebits is actually the judge in this court. He hasn't conducted a jury trial here in over 5 years. I was actually part of the first jury trial that was here by the Honorable Lawrence Allen, who was reassigned by the Ohio Supreme Court because of Judge Trebits' incompetency. I'd like to tell you a little bit of a history about this judge and what this court represents. In October 24th, 2012, at approximately, I don't know, about 10 o'clock at night, a young man by the name of Kyle Miller was 17 years old, working at BP gas station on, I believe, 306. Everything was being videotaped at the time. He got off of work. He went out to his car. The police appeared out of nowhere. All the narcotics, the main ones, everything was being videotaped at the time. They ransacked one of the juveniles' cars after all of the juveniles said that they were not doing anything and their cars were locked. They held Kyle Miller down, opened up his car, searched his car, found nothing. The police officers perjured themselves. That's the Mentor Police Department. Don't let it confuse with Mentor on the Lake. Mentor Police Department and their narcotics units came before John Trebits on this case. The case number is right here, by the way, so you can know about it, and there's a videotape there for any other defendants that have been dealing with the corruption in the Mentor Municipal Court or with the Mentor Police or their narcotics squad. And in this case, what ended up happening is the officers got on the stand and perjured themselves and said it was a traffic stop and he was stopped for speeding. And in any event, the case ended up being dismissed because by this time this 17-year-old kid on January 7th, 2013 actually blew these people away with U.S. Supreme Court case law, Wong Sung versus United States and Silver Thorn Labor Company versus United States, that this was an unlawful stop and seizure of a car. They violated his civil rights. They assaulted him. Then Johnny Trebits was also involved in a case called Ohio versus Robert Myers. And in the Myers case, he lived in the Headlands down here. And what happened was he was swearing in his backyard by himself. His next door neighbor was a police officer, had a problems down in Beechwood, like controlling his slutty wife. And what it ended up happening was when the police officer came home from work, he rewound his security camera, and it was so grainy, he turned it over to Lisa Clammer, the late Ted Clammer's proxy little daughter that's unqualified, but she's a prosecutor here in the Mentor Municipal Court. 99% conviction rate, all guilty pleas based upon public pretenders here intimidating and working with the prosecutor and Judge Trebits, and without filing a single motion, they have everybody plead guilty. And as I said, there hasn't been a jury trial here in 5 years. Getting back to the Robert Myers case, he ended up being found guilty on December 3rd, 2012 for swearing by himself in his backyard. He said the word fuck, he said the word cocksucker, he said the word shit. Lenny Bruce challenged the word cocksucker a long time ago, and as Robert Myers said during his closing arguments, that if Lenny Bruce was alive, he would call both the judge and the prosecutor a cocksucker, okay? Now, as far as the word fuck, Cohen versus California, 1971, the word fuck is a protected speech. So, swearing by yourself and saying, oh, fuck, I guess you're going to get arrested if you're by yourself, okay? In any event, as we move forward, what ended up happening was that a lady by the name of Victor or Erm Ziegler filed litigation, actually a rent escrow, in Mentor Municipal Court over black mold and various repairs and maintenance that needed to be done on the property, affecting the health and safety based upon gutters pumping water for years through the walls, created black mold, and Burton Carroll management ended up right here on this case end up putting like 2 or 3 kills on top of it. The black mold would still go through. Victor signed, circulated petitions and everything, and the next thing you know, they retaliated against her after they unlawfully released the rent escrow with not anything being done. The name of the law firm that was involved in this case was Powers, Friedman, and Lynn. Within 2 weeks, Burton Carroll Management, with assistance of Judge Trebits here, ended up filing a retaliatory and vindictive eviction complaint against her to silence her about the black mold and for exercising her right, federal constitutional right to association and to circulate petitions. What John Trebits did is he denied the right to a jury trial during the eviction and separated the retaliation claim from the eviction. So what happened was Mrs. Victor was railroaded out, or Mrs. Ziegler was taken out of kicked out of her apartment. She was silenced and intimidated, and then on October 23rd at 9 o'clock on case number, let's see here, 2014-227, the Honorable Lawrence Allen was appointed by the Ohio Supreme Court to actually conduct Mentor Municipal Court's first jury trial in 5 years because of Judge Johnny Trebits' incompetence, personal biasness, and obvious corruption in trying to cover up members of the Bar Association from Powers, Friedman, and Lynn, specifically Robert Friedman and Michael Lynn. And they are attorneys for Burton Carroll for the old Harbor Run Apartments that's now called the Reserve on the Point, that they changed the name to cover up black mold exposure. John Trebits was fully aware of the health and safety reasons that was here, but he had to do something to help his fellow attorneys dealing with the fraud from the unlawful release of the rent escrow. So what ended up happening was the attorneys for the specific law firm filed motions for limine on the day of jury trial to tell Mrs. Ziegler and dictate to the court that she shouldn't be allowed to bring in the health and safety violations. She shouldn't be able to bring in witnesses to testify about how retaliatory this particular law firm is, specifically in the case called Millennium Management LTD versus Patricia Johnson, 2012, Ohio, 1044. So what happened was they ended up, the jury compromised their verdict because they figured since she was evicted without being able to present a defense, then she must owe the money for a water bill that doesn't exist. And so what happens is there's at not Millennium Management, Burton Carroll at the Reserve on the Point, what they ended up having was a $44 water bill. They canceled the water service with everybody at the Reserve on the Point and then told everybody, you're going to pay $44 a month. The problem was when we did the jury trial and newly discovered evidence, it turns out that they only pay quarterly. That means every 4 months they pay $56 for water for there. So that means that it's called RICO, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organizations. And so we have a judge here that's receiving money from these people. He has been dictated to by prosecutors. He's been dictated to by other members of the bar. The next time you vote, remember that if you ever want a jury trial, if you ever want the right to defend yourself, and if you ever come to the Mentor Municipal Court, you're going to be surrounded by police officers as I was. And as I was asking questions, there was, 7 old, out-of-shape police officers retired, and they just try to intimidate you. And what happens is this is exactly what goes on with anybody coming in there with any type of charge, and you don't stand a chance here. And the only way that you're going to stand a chance is if you exercise your right. And I try to make my appearance here every single day and tell everybody, plead not guilty, take it to jury trial, expose Judge Trebits, and whether you take it to trial or plead guilty, you pay the same court fees and costs. The people are coming, Mentor.